In a world where leaders clash and nations tremble, one question remains. Who guides the course of history? Is it the visible hand of political power, the calculated moves on the global chessboard? Or is there a deeper, unseen current shaping the destinies of nations and their people? This question echoes with particular force in the heart of West Africa, in a nation of immense complexity and profound faith. This week, that nation, Nigeria, was thrust into the global spotlight by a startling headline. U.S. President Donald Trump suggested that America might deploy troops to stop the mass killings of Christians. Reuters, AP News, and countless other outlets carried the story, painting a picture of a nation divided along a single, stark religious line. The narrative is powerful, and for many, deeply alarming. It speaks to a world where faith itself has become a battleground. But behind the politics, behind the headlines that simplify for the sake of clarity, there's a deeper, more intricate truth. A truth that challenges us to look beyond the immediate crisis and understand the forces that have been at work for centuries. To grasp the full picture, we must acknowledge that the story of conflict in Nigeria is not a simple tale of one faith against another. It is a complex tapestry woven from threads of history, ethnicity, climate change, and economic desperation. The roots of today's tensions run deep into the pre-colonial soil where diverse kingdoms and cultures coexisted. The arrival of colonial powers drew lines on maps that often ignored ancient ethnic and political realities, creating a state where competition for resources and influence became inevitable. In the decades since independence, these fault lines have been strained by political upheaval, military coups, and the pressures of rapid urbanization. More recently, the rise of extremist groups like Boko Haram and ISWAP has brought unimaginable suffering, yet it's crucial to remember they have targeted and killed both Muslims and Christians indiscriminately, attacking mosques as well as churches. Their ideology is a perversion of faith, rejected by the vast majority of Muslims in Nigeria and worldwide. Simultaneously, in the nation's fertile Middle Belt, long-standing tensions between nomadic herders and settled farmers have erupted into devastating violence. This is not just a religious clash. It is a desperate struggle over land and water, exacerbated by desertification and organized criminal gangs who exploit the chaos for profit. To label this multifaceted crisis as purely religious is to ignore the cries of countless victims from all backgrounds. It is in this complex, often painful reality that another truth emerges. A truth found not in policy briefings, but in ancient scripture. The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he pleases. Proverbs 21:1. This verse offers a profound perspective. It suggests that even the most powerful leaders, the most intractable conflicts, and the most chaotic events are not beyond the scope of a higher, divine sovereignty. What if this moment, this headline from Washington, this long-suffering crisis in Nigeria, isn't just global politics? What if it's part of a divine tapestry, woven with threads of human free will, historical consequence, and God's ultimate purpose? A pattern that is too vast for us to see completely from our limited vantage point. Understanding this requires us to move past the simple headlines and engage with the difficult, nuanced truth on the ground. It calls for empathy, a commitment to accuracy, and a willingness to see the humanity in all people affected by this tragedy. Join us as we explore how power, faith, and sovereignty intersect in the world today, seeking wisdom and clarity amidst the noise of our turbulent times. In the heart of West Africa lies a nation of immense scale and complexity. Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, is home to over 200 million people and hundreds of distinct ethnic groups. Its history is a deep and intricate tapestry, woven long before colonial lines were drawn on a map. For centuries, powerful empires like the Northern Sokoto Caliphate shaped its identity through faith and trade, While in the South, the arrival of Christian missions introduced new beliefs and worldviews. This created a rich, diverse, but often fractured landscape. The legacy of these historical fault lines, further defined during the colonial era and tested since independence, continues to shape the nation's destiny. It's a history rich with achievement, but also marked by profound troubles that challenge its unity to this day. Into this complex reality, a stark international warning was recently issued. From the White House, President Trump publicly cautioned the Nigerian government to halt the killing of Christians, threatening significant consequences if the violence continued. The message was unambiguous, with the president stating that direct U.S. military action was a possibility. Troops, or airstrikes, could be, he was quoted as saying, sending ripples through diplomatic channels. Reuters Nigeria's official response was measured but firm. Acknowledging the crisis, the government stated it would welcome international assistance and partnership in combating violence. However, it drew a clear line, emphasizing that any foreign intervention could not come at the expense of its national sovereignty, a principle fiercely guarded since its independence. However, many analysts and observers on the ground caution against viewing the situation through a single lens. The international headline, focusing on a Christian versus Muslim narrative, risks oversimplifying a deeply multifaceted crisis. The violence, particularly in the nation's Middle Belt, is fueled by a convergence of desperate circumstances. Climate change is pushing herders south into farmlands, sparking brutal conflicts over scarce resources. Decades of political and economic grievances have festered, and opportunistic criminal gangs, known as bandits, now terrorize communities for profit, attacking mosques and churches alike. In this tragic reality, both Christians and Muslims are victims, often neighbors caught in the same devastating cycles of violence. This complexity offers little comfort to those who have lost their homes, their livelihoods, and their loved ones. For people of faith across Nigeria, enduring this storm of violence, the headlines and political debates fade into the background. A more profound and personal question rises above all the noise, a question whispered in churches and mosques, in quiet prayers and moments of despair. Where is God in all of this? The Bible teaches a central truth. Human rulers move, but the divine hand remains steady. Proverbs 21:1 says so. Consider King Nebuchadnezzar, prideful, exalted, yet humbled by God's purpose. Or Cyrus, a pagan king used by God to release Israel. Isaiah 45. These stories remind us, leaders are players, but God holds the script. Could this talk of military action in Nigeria be something more than geopolitics? Maybe God, who sets the hearts of kings, has raised a voice on behalf of the oppressed. But let's be clear, this isn't about armies or politics. It's about spirituality, justice, and timing. A leader may advance an agenda, but the faithful have a role too, to pray, to discern, to act in love. What can you, sitting thousands of miles away, do? Pray for leaders. 1 Timothy 2:1-2 calls us to intercede for kings and rulers. Stand for the vulnerable. Micah 6:8 reminds us to act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. Recognize God's timing. When nations move, we move in faith, not fear. Wherever you are part of this story. We've journeyed through the complex, often painful history of Nigeria, a story far more intricate than simple headlines suggest. We've seen how politics, land, climate, and crime have woven themselves into the fabric of faith, creating deep fault lines. In the face of such overwhelming complexity, it's easy to feel powerless, to wonder where God is when human systems fail and suffering endures. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that we must anchor ourselves in a deeper truth. As presidents speak and armies mobilize, remember, God's ultimate purposes cannot be thwarted. His sovereignty is not a promise of a life without turmoil, but a guarantee that even amidst the chaos, his redemptive plan is unfolding. The heart of the king, the strategies of generals, the anger of a mob. They may turn this way or that, like a river diverted by a temporary dam. But the heart of the Lord remains constant. His compassion extends to every victim, regardless of their creed. His justice calls for an end to violence, and his mercy is found in the hands of those who rebuild, who forgive, and who dare to seek peace. So here is your invitation, a call that moves beyond passive observation. Pray, discern, act. Pray with informed hearts for the displaced, for the grieving, for both Christian and Muslim communities devastated by violence. Pray for the peacemakers and the bridge builders. Discern with wisdom. Reject the simplistic narratives that fuel hatred. Seek out balanced sources and listen to the voices of Nigerians working for reconciliation. And finally, act with intention. Support credible humanitarian and peace-building organizations on the ground. Use your voice not to amplify division, but to foster understanding and empathy. Because when nations tremble, the faithful do not just stand firm, they become agents of healing and hope. Subscribe to join us on this journey of understanding faith in action. We are committed to exploring these complex issues with nuance and compassion. Now, we want to hear from you in a spirit of respectful dialogue. Please comment below. After seeing this fuller picture, what do you believe God is calling His people to be and do in response to such moments of crisis?